Discover the amazing journey, from Maid to Billionaire's wife, a touching love story unveiled. Maria Lopez, 34, was a woman tethered to the relentless grind of her life. Each dawn broke with the same anxiety-filled routine, racing against the clock to dress her two children, Sammy and Lisa, sending them off to school before disappearing into a mansion that felt as cold and imposing as the bills stacking up on her kitchen table. The hills and fields surrounding their quaint Kentucky town may have whispered tales of hope, but Maria's world was a constant cycle of weariness, a repetitive flow that borrowed against her dreams. She longed for a life beyond the vacuum of cleaning, yearning to return to school, but those dreams felt grotesquely out of reach. In that sprawling mansion, while dusting shelves, her path crossed Derek Hastings, a billionaire whose world dripped with the bitterness of high expectations and family complications. Initially wary, Maria's hesitation dissipated as their casual conversation started flowing into something deeper. He listened as she shared stories of her children and her dreams, the sheer joy of motherhood spilling from her lips. It was the first time in a long while that she didn't just feel like a maid, she felt valued. Yet, beneath this burgeoning bond, fear erupted within her, a gnawing anxiety about what her simple life could mean to someone so privileged. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As their connection grew, Maria envisioned soaring beyond her role as a maid, picturing herself as an entrepreneur, opening a cleaning service that could not only provide for her children but uplift others facing similar burdens. Yet just as her aspirations ignited, the shadows of her past loomed larger. Her ex-husband resurfaced like a bad dream, demands slicing through the newfound stability she was trying to forge. Every phone call added weight to her shoulders while her children unknowingly absorbed the tension that radiated from her racing mind. Caught in that momentum of desire and desperation, Maria faced a moral reckoning: build a future where her dreams could flourish, or retreat into the suffocating familiarity of her past for the sake of her children's well-being. Her heart battled against the startling pressure of this duality, anxiety curling tighter around her chest like a vice. She wanted to embrace her future but feared would she hurt Sammy and Lisa in the process. Could she remain resilient even as the community's judgment began to sting, fueled by their racial biases and old-fashioned notions of worth? In this crucible of hope and fear, Maria's visage in the mirror became a haunting reflection of her internal strife, a tide of anger mixing with determination. With every decision looming closer, clarity twisted into anguish, leaving her questioning whether investing in her dreams would tear apart the delicate threads that held her family together. As her gaze sharpened on her dexterous fingers, which once clutched a mop, she could feel them tighten around her future. But the walls were closing in, and as Maria carried the emotional burden of her choices, the stakes were rising higher than she ever imagined. A secret hidden in their family's intertwined past threatened to unravel everything, igniting tensions that would push her closer to a precipice she never knew existed. Would she leap into the unknown, risking everything for love and authenticity, or would she hold on tightly to the familiar chains of her life, fearing the pain of loss? Maria's world constricted around her, each breath a reminder of the choices looming like storm clouds in her mind. The steps she had to take weighed heavily, as if coated in lead. Moments with Derek danced in her thoughts, his laughter a stark contrast to the tension coiling inside. Why did she feel so drawn to someone whose life seemed galaxies away from her own? Could an unexpected connection with a billionaire forge a new chapter, or would it end in heartache? Each day, cleaning the opulent mansion, she began to imagine the layers of potential within herself. A burst of enthusiasm emerged, igniting her thoughts of entrepreneurship. The idea took root and flourished. A cleaning service could be hers, not just a dream but a concrete reality. In those fleeting visions, she saw herself standing tall, wearing a proud smile instead of a fearful frown. But just as she began to taste the sweetness of ambition, bitterness followed. Phone calls from her ex-husband invaded moments of clarity, demand after demand strangling the hope woven into her dreams. "I need more money, Maria," he'd say, a hint of menace lacing his words. Each ring sliced through the fragile stability she'd crafted, tainting every attempt she made to rise from her past. The children sensed her growing distance, her focus splintered between duty and desire. Guilt gnawed at her as nights passed without their usual gatherings around the dinner table. Maria grappled with her conflicting feelings, torn between protecting her children and pursuing a life that could offer them more stability. What if chasing her dreams triggered their father's wrath? Yet, an underlying tenacity surged within her. If she were to become a person her children could be proud of, she had to face these fears head-on. She felt a new determination bloom with each moment Derek's eyes lingered on her, as if he believed in her potential far more than she did. It was exhilarating and terrifying all at once. One quiet night, while her children slept, Maria sat with a glass of water and her journal, scribbling thoughts furiously. She envisioned marketing plans for her service, drafted figures on paper of what it could mean financially. Sweat trickled down her brow, each stroke of the pen released pieces of her past and allowed glimmers of hope for the future. What if her efforts led to a change in her life that would shield her children from the pain of mediocrity? But the relief was short-lived. Shadows lengthened as she heard the front door slam. A heavy dread settled in her chest, adrenaline rushing through her veins. It was her ex-husband. Vital decisions hung in the balance, the time fast approaching when she would have to confront him. Would she stand her ground, or retreat into submission? As he called out for her, demanding entry, uncertainty clawed at her. Was she ready to protect what she was building? Or would she allow the past to swallow her whole? Maria's heart raced, it was time to evaluate who she wanted to be. Just as she stood to face what lay ahead, her phone vibrated again. A message from Derek glowed on the screen, a suggestion that they meet to discuss their recent conversations more seriously. Time stood still. Would that be the step towards the future she craved, or the final unraveling of her present? The stakes felt monumental, and as she glanced one last time at the plan sketched out on the page, determination surged through her. The choice was crystal clear, yet far from easy. What path would she choose when both love and responsibility beckoned? The moment of truth loomed ahead. Maria's heart pounded as she read Derek's message a second time, the glow of the phone illuminating a path forward but also darkening the edges of her anxiety. The juxtaposition of his offer and her ex-husband's looming presence felt like a tightrope walk across an endless gap of uncertainty. She took a deep breath, attempting to steady her racing thoughts. Time was a fickle friend, and every second she hesitated drew her closer to the conflict growing at her doorstep. With a sense of urgency, she turned her back on the unfinished plans scattered across the dining table, leaving her whispered dreams of entrepreneurship to breathe in the silence. The door shook under her ex-husband's forceful knocks, and Maria could almost taste the bitterness of their shared past. It was time to reclaim her narrative, a decision both daunting and invigorating. "Open up, Maria." His voice was sharp, a mix of demands and entitlement that spiked her resolve. In that moment, she recognized the shifting tides within her. This wasn't just about him anymore, it was about her reclaiming power she had long abandoned. "I'm coming," she called, maintaining her composure. Each step toward the door was a deliberate act. She was merely opening the door to confront her ex-husband, she was stepping toward a future that held her identity. As the door swung inward, she was met with his familiar scowl, but there was no longer a flicker of fear within her. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice steady, a protective barrier against the chaos he often unleashed. "I need cash, Maria. This is ridiculous. You think you can just bail and leave me hanging?" The anger in his tone didn't surprise her anymore. His desperation was clear, but so was her resolve to stand firm. "No, I can't keep giving you money. I have kids to care for, and I'm trying to build something here." She felt the tremor of strength in her own words. It was a realization that pierced through the fog of doubt she could sustain herself and her children without clinging to her past. He blinked, disbelief mingling with rage in his eyes. "You think you can just do it alone? You need me." "No," Maria cut him off, her assertion louder than the noise that filled the space between them. "I need to be a mother, and I need to be someone my kids can look up to. That doesn't include caving to your demands." With that declaration, the weight of years spent in his shadow began to lift. She closed the door firmly, sealing off the remnants of a former life. Every decision leading up to this moment coalesced into a new clarity, a commitment to transform her dreams into reality. Retreating to the kitchen, her mind spun with newfound energy. The thought of a meeting with Derek became more than just a calendar entry, it was the catalyst for her rebirth. Although he occupied a different world, there was a possibility he could be a bridge to the future she longed for. She grabbed a pen and paper, returning to her scattered thoughts. This time, she wrote with purpose, detailing her ideas for the cleaning service. She added a mission statement that spoke to her desire for independence and empowerment, key elements missing from her previous life. As she tore the page from the notepad, Maria felt a connection, a thrill coursing through her veins as she put her life into words. It was a plan, a declaration, and a chance to break away from dependency. Later, sitting at the edge of her bed, she drafted a response to Derek. Her heart fluttered with anticipation as she clicked send. That night, restless with possibilities, Maria replayed her decision over and over in her mind. The tension of that day melded into hope, yet doubt still loomed in the background. Could she truly balance it all? Was she ready to step into a partnership with someone as formidable as Derek? Just as sleep threatened to claim her, the phone buzzed again. A sudden jolt of anxiety shot through her, and she checked the message with bated breath. It was from Derek, and as she read it, her heart raced. He wanted to meet tomorrow. What did he see in her? Was he ready to help turn her dreams into reality, or was this just another fork in the road, darkened by uncertainty? The moment of truth was finally upon her. A choice awaited that would challenge everything she thought she wanted. Would she dare to leap into the unknown? The clock was ticking, and she could feel the pulse of fate speeding up. Maria woke the next morning with a mix of excitement and dread swirling within her. The sunlight crept through the window, illuminating the dim corners of her bedroom, highlighting the shadows of uncertainty that lingered in her mind. Her fingers brushed against her phone as she contemplated Derek's message from the night before. A meeting. The promise of guidance and opportunity. She could almost taste the freedom that came with these possibilities, yet the fear of the unknown gripped her. Shaking off the remnants of sleep, she pulled herself from bed and began her morning routine with the same determination she had discovered the night before. Each movement felt deliberate as she refreshed her face with cold water, a gesture that invigorated her resolve. Today was not just another day, it was a critical moment in her life where she would step closer to reclaiming her sense of self. After a rushed breakfast, Maria dressed carefully, wanting to project confidence. She chose a simple yet smart outfit, something that reflected her seriousness about this new path, but allowed flashes of her personality to shine through. The moment she glanced in the mirror, the woman staring back had edged closer to the fierce spirit she had buried for so long. As the clock ticked away, she battled internal arguments. Could she really forge this new path? What would Derek think of her business proposal? As doubts began to spiral, she interrupted the thoughts with a mantra she had crafted: I am capable. I am deserving. I will succeed. Arriving at the cafe where they agreed to meet, Maria's heart raced as she scanned the bustling room. She spotted Derek seated at the table, his posture relaxed yet authoritative. He seemed confident, but Maria sensed there was more than just professionalism in his eyes. She felt a pang of vulnerability. Would he see through her carefully curated confidence? As she approached, he looked up with an encouraging smile that eased her tension slightly. Maria, good to see you, he said, extending a hand. Thank you for meeting with me, Maria replied, her voice steady. They exchanged small talk, but beneath it, Maria felt the weight of the moment looming. The conversation turned to business quickly, Derek leaning in as she began to describe her vision for the cleaning service. I want to empower others through this business, create jobs that support single parents like me, she articulated, her passion igniting her voice. Unfolding her ideas, she felt them strengthen as she spoke. Each sentence peeled back layers of self-doubt, revealing her readiness to drain the old shadows that were previously her comfort zone. Derek listened intently, his gaze unwavering, which invigorated her further. As she finished her proposal, a rush of exhilaration surged through her. This was a dream, laid bare before him, the first tangible step towards her future. That's impressive, Maria, Derek responded, leaning back in his chair. You have a clear vision, and that's half the battle. He continued to probe, asking questions that revealed gaps in her plan, pushing her to think more critically about her ambitions. Suddenly, Maria felt exposed, dealing with criticism where she had ventured so vulnerably. A flicker of doubt crept back. Was she an imposter? Did she have the capacity to pull this off? But as Derek continued to guide her, something shifted within her. This was not just critique, it was mentorship. The fire in her grew, she needed to confront these challenges head-on. Each question he raised no longer felt like an attack but rather a chance for her growth. She started to embrace the feedback as learning experiences. Maria, he said, leaning forward again, I believe in your potential. We can work together on this. His words set off an electric pulse of encouragement, awakening her ambition. The collaboration she feared transformed into an exciting opportunity. As they wrapped up the meeting, Maria felt a profound sense of purpose anchoring her resolve. She was no longer simply trying to escape her past, she was moving towards something greater. But beneath that newfound confidence still lay the tremors of what awaited her ex-husband, as emergence was inevitable, and his demands would not simply dissolve. Back in her car, Maria mused on the meeting and the burgeoning ambitions she now had. Those earlier doubts felt like remnants of someone else's narrative. She was the author of her own story now. But the silence of the afternoon soon shattered with a notification from her phone. A message from her ex-husband flickered across the screen. The familiar pang of anxiety lanced through her. What did he want this time? Did he know about her meeting? Would he attempt to undermine her gains? In that moment, Maria faced another test, a confrontation brewing on the horizon. How would she maintain this new power she was cultivating? Would she allow the past to dictate her future once again? The time had come to face not only her ambitions but the remnants of a life she was determined to leave behind. Maria stared at the message on her phone, her breath catching momentarily. It was a simple request to meet. Yet, to her, it felt like a trap, baited with the certainty of conflict she had long wrestled with. Her ex-husband had a way of destabilizing her peace, and the thought of his presence sent ripples of anxiety through her. However, she knew that avoidance had never been an option. Her decision to confront him began to solidify in her mind, mirroring the determination she felt earlier with Derek. As she drove, a plan started forming. She needed to reassert her boundaries. This wasn't just about the business, this was about her reclaiming her narrative. Upon returning home, Maria examined the living space that felt both familiar and stifling. It was cluttered with remnants of the life she shared with her ex, a life heavily steeped in dependence and regret. But every corner whispered of her past, reminding her of the obstacles she had surmounted. Each item held a memory, both a challenge and a testament to her strength. She had transformed the house into a home. Now, she was set to transform her life, fear and all. As she set about tidying up, she reflected on the meeting with Derek. The exhilaration of sharing her vision fueled her with energy. But was she ready to tackle what lay ahead? The idea of plunging into the unknown was both exhilarating and terrifying. Those moments in the cafe had been pivotal, awakening ambition within her that she thought had long since faded. The deep breath she took wasn't just to calm herself, it was a signal to her subconscious that she was no longer that woman shackled by doubt. Confidence was growing roots within her, pushing back against the instincts that urged her to retreat into the shadows. She was stepping into a role that demanded courage and clarity, both of which she would need for her upcoming confrontation. As the evening light dimmed, she called her sister, seeking not just a sounding board but wisdom. "Anna, he wants to meet. I'm not sure how to handle it." Her voice trembled, an unexpected fracture in her armor. "Listen," Anna replied firmly. "You're not that same person anymore. He can't have the power to dictate your feelings. You are building something new. Own it. This is your time." Those words resonated, igniting a flicker of defiance within her. "You are right. I won't let him intimidate me. I have so much more to lose now," Maria said, the weight of her responsibility settling on her shoulders. Her passion for her cleaning service merged powerfully with the responsibility of motherhood. When they hung up, Maria felt fortified. She chose to focus on her goals, outlining her key talking points for the meeting. She realized that in order to maintain control over her future, she must also firmly establish what she wouldn't allow in her life. The next day arrived too quickly, filled with clouds threatening rain, mirroring her internal storm. As she arrived at the cafe where they agreed to meet, nerves twisted in her stomach. The sight of him, slouched at the table, sent a spark of anger through her. He looked unbothered, as if he held all the cards. "Maria," he said, his tone dripping with faint warmth. "Thanks for coming. Let us get to the point." "I'm busy, and I don't have time for games," she stated, her voice steady as she met his gaze. In the back of her mind, fear clashed with determination. This was not only an opportunity to assert herself but a defining moment in her journey of self-discovery. As he started to speak about old agreements and potential claims he believed he wielded over her, remnants of authority long broken, she felt something shift inside her. His attempts to undermine her resolve only served to solidify it. She realized she had been preparing for this moment all along. "What you think you're entitled to has no hold over me anymore," she responded, her heart racing yet absolutely focused. But as he leaned in with a disarming smirk, she knew the fight was just beginning. He hadn't changed, and the stakes were higher than ever. "Let us see how far you're willing to go to protect this new life you're creating," he said, his eyes narrowing, suggesting layers of threats that sent a chill down her spine. In that split second, Maria understood the real battle was not just with him but with the past that lingered like a shadow in her life. The determination roared in her fierce spirit, awakening from a long sleep. The confrontation ignited, and she was ready to face not just him, but everything she had fought so hard to overcome. Would she emerge victorious, or was her past still inescapably entangled with her future? The answer lingered tantalizingly out of reach, shifting with every strident word they exchanged. Maria felt an electric tension crackle in the air between them. As her ex-husband spoke, she forced herself to focus, tuning out the words that dripped with condescension, concentrating instead on the rhythm of her breaths. Each inhale filled her with resolve, each exhale released fragments of fear. No, she wouldn't allow him to regain control. Your cleaning business is nothing but a hobby to you, Maria. You really think you can manage this? His voice, thick with skepticism, tried to slice through her newfound confidence. There was a moment of silence, where Maria's heart synced with her breathing. This isn't a hobby. It's my life. I'm not asking for your approval, she countered, every word laced with defiance. As she watched him lean back, trying to mask surprise, a flicker of satisfaction ignited within her. The confrontation felt like lifting a heavy stone from her chest. There was significance in this dialogue, a pivotal test of her ability to defend the space she had carved out for herself. You think standing up to me is going to change anything? He pressed, a smirk creeping across his lips, yet for the first time, his bravado felt hollow, a facade quickly crumbling. Change is exactly what I'm after, Maria declared, her voice steady, picking up strength as she spoke. You're right. I'm not the same woman you once knew. I've grown. I know my worth now. His expression shifted from amusement to irritation. Perhaps he had underestimated her. A rush of adrenaline coursed through her veins, it fueled her ambition and reminded her of why she was fighting. This was about her future, her children, and building a legacy that didn't echo with chains of the past. Yet, in moments of clarity, she recognized the ghosts of uncertainty that lingered at the fringes of her thoughts. Was it truly possible to break free of his hold? For so long, she had been caught in the undertow of his expectations. Don't get ahead of yourself. You'll regret this, he warned, his voice low. It was more a threat than a taunt. Her heart raced, but this time it was a visceral thrill and awakening. Every nerve in her body screamed for her to stand firm. Regretting my decisions is no longer in my playbook, she said, feeling empowerment radiate from her core. I've built something significant, and I refuse to let anyone undermine it. With those words, time seemed to freeze. She witnessed a transformation within herself. The worries that once plagued her, the fear of judgment and retribution, where had they gone? The shadows dissipated, leaving resolve in their wake. As the conversation churned, Maria began to see in him nothing but an adversary, a part of her past she was determined to leave behind. With a clarity she hadn't recognized before, she mapped out her boundaries, each word anchoring her stance further into the ground. I can't promise you it will be easy, he replied. The consequences of stepping away from me will follow you. Maria knew his words were thinly veiled threats, yet she felt no trepidation. His attempts at intimidation only fueled her drive, driving home the undeniable truth. The real contest was her own perception of self-worth. I'm done being a character in your story. This is my life, my narrative, she asserted, the finality of her words hanging heavily in the air. It was the most liberating declaration she could make. Yet as he stood to leave, she felt an unsettling twist in her stomach, an echo of anxiety that danced beneath her courage. Had she truly prepared for the pummeling repercussions of this confrontation? The chilling certainty that this was overloomed palpably. As she watched him depart, leaving behind a swirl of chaos, doubt crept back in, whispering insidiously, would every confrontation simply give rise to more conflict? With her thoughts whirling like a tempest, she wondered if her determination could withstand the aftermath of her newfound defiance. As she walked away, the realization that her ex-husband might come after more than just her peace settled in her mind. She had awakened a storm, yet she felt imbued with an even greater fire inside her. Her journey had just begun, fraught with peril but bursting with possibility. Who would she become in the wake of this confrontation? In facing him, had she unknowingly called upon deeper challenges that lay ahead, a new venture that tested her to the core? The queries echoed in her mind, leaving her hungering for resolution even as fresh challenges beckoned. The hours that followed the confrontation felt like a disorienting flutter of time, each second marked by the reverberation of her ex-husband's parting words. As Maria closed the door behind him, a residue of tension clung to her skin like an uncomfortable cloak. Determination surged within her as she mentally replayed the exchange, a script of defiance she had never thought herself capable of writing. In the wake of that moment, her thoughts began to crystallize. Was she truly prepared for the battle that lay ahead? The essence of her cleaning business, still fragile yet vibrant, flickered at the edges of her consciousness, reminding her why she had initiated this change. The walls of the small office she had rented served as a fortress, each polished surface a reflection of her ambition and her intent. Maria sank into the worn chair in front of her desk, her gaze sweeping across the cluttered space. It was time to strategize. A venture beyond mere survival demanded tactical planning. She needed to bolster her business, drawing from the tenacity she had just unearthed. The thought of reaching out to old clients and nurturing new relationships excited her. The prospect of expanding her services filled her with a sense of purpose, though she knew the whispers of doubt would continue to linger. With focused intent, Maria opened her laptop, her fingers poised over the keyboard. She observed the screen's glow, inviting her to break beyond her past constraints. The first step was to create a detailed business plan, one that didn't just capture her immediate needs but forecasted a future infused with growth and innovation. It was daunting, yet the thrill of the challenge ignited a spark she desperately craved. As she navigated online resources, the lines between opportunity and fear blurring in her mind, she envisioned her business taking shape. In that moment, Maria realized she could transform every past obstacle into a stepping stone. A surge of adrenaline coursed through her veins, rekindling the resolve she had found earlier. After crafting a rough outline of her services, she turned her attention to her finances. It was challenging to wrestle with numbers that felt so distant from the creative aspect of her work. Each figure seemed to challenge her competence, but she understood that this was her battle to conquer. Acceptance of her multifaceted identity as both a nurturer and a savvy businesswoman was essential. Night had fallen when she finally leaned back, the weight of the minimization slowly lifting from her chest. Maria smiled at the promise of her entrepreneurial dream. Yet amid exhaustion, the quiet shadows of insecurity slithered in. What would her ex-husband do in response to her newfound independence? The tension of anticipation settled in the pit of her stomach. She imagined his face, the mocking smirk replaced with something more dangerous, a protective streak for a territory he believed still belonged to him. The looming uncertainty that hovered didn't hint at surrender, instead, it fanned the flames of Maria's resolve. This was not just about her business but also about everything she had fought to reclaim. Outside, the night was thick, heavy with a palpable silence, as if the world held its breath alongside her. She was acutely aware that dangers awaited her, challenges that would test not only her entrepreneurial skills but also her emotional resilience. Yet, the rush of adrenaline reminded her of the long road ahead, the need for connections, the establishing of boundaries. Would she have the courage to build not just a business but an empire? The dialogue she envisioned in her mind with her ex-husband troubled her. It held a glimmer of truth, leaving her unearthed fears lurking beneath the surface of newfound identity. The swirling tempest reminded her that, while she could fight for this life, she'd also have to battle inner demons. Would she cave under the pressure of her own dreams? Could she really craft a legacy without compromising her values? The air grew charged, darker with implications yet brighter with potential as she grappled with conflicting emotions. As the hour grew late, her final thought lingered: what decisive move would she make next? What allies could she enlist? The realization that she wasn't just combating her ex but an internal struggle about her identity loomed larger. A quest for affirmation awaited, and her heart raced at the notion of diving deep into her new reality. The path before her was strewn with complexities, each step laden with the possibility of growth or failure. Tomorrow would be a test, and she was ready to prove not just her worth but to redefine her existence on her terms. But at what cost would her independence come? And could she truly confront all that awaited her when the storm was not only external? Morning light seeped into the small office, illuminating the dusty corners that had previously felt like remnants of a life she was trying to leave behind. As Maria stirred from a fitful sleep, the weight of the previous night's decision settled heavily on her mind. It no longer felt like an abstraction. This was her life now, unfurling into an uncharted terrain, and she was at the helm. She took a moment to breathe in the scent of coffee as her brain awoke, thinking about what defining actions she could initiate today. The thought of drafting an outreach email to reconnect with her former clients had her heart racing. What if they discarded her message as quickly as it arrived? What if they doubted her ability to provide the level of service they once enjoyed? But the way she saw it, every great challenge was also an opportunity, and perhaps today would be the day she transformed apprehension into empowerment. Coffee cup in hand, Maria sat at her desk and began typing. Her fingers danced over the keyboard, crafting messages that mingled professionalism with a personal touch. She reminisced about the family she had serviced, their homes transformed not just in cleanliness but also through the warmth of human connection. She wanted her clients to feel that same warmth once more, to remember why they had chosen her in the first place. As she hit send, a rush of triumph washed over her. It was thrilling to take the first real step toward rebuilding. Yet, she was fully aware that a struggle against self-doubt was still a reality. She envisioned her ex, scoffing at her attempts, belittling her ambition. His words echoed in her mind, "You could never make it on your own." It ignited a spark within her, a desire to prove him wrong. With new determination, Maria sought to elevate her business further by scouting opportunities for partnership. She began making calls to local businesses that complemented her services: florists, real estate agents, and home improvement stores. The idea was to create packages that offered discounts when bundled with their services. This collaborative approach not only expanded her clientele but also intertwined her journey with that of other local entrepreneurs, nurturing a sense of community over competition in her own way. Hours flew by as she mapped out potential partnerships, bringing to life a vision once relegated to daydreams. Each conversation allowed her to refine her pitch, feeding her confidence and encouraging her to dig deeper into her emotional reservoir to connect with others. It shocked her how invigorating it felt to engage with these strangers, each exchange revealing bits of a previously stifled self. She could be more than just a maid, she was emerging as a networker, an innovator, and a businesswoman. But beyond the thrill of building connections lay a deeper realization. Past vulnerabilities bubbled to the surface, reminding her of the moments she had settled for less, for the easy routes because of fear. Each call echoed her desire to not only reclaim a former agency but to shatter the glass ceiling self-doubt had erected around her. That night, Maria studied her small office, filled with potential and trembling over the newly penned contracts she had drafted. But she was aware that the celebration was premature, her ex-husband's influence was still lingering, and the potential for disruption remained high. She needed allies and strategies for when he, inevitably, sought to interfere. Laying out plans for her business expansion could only get her so far. The ache of insecurity and the looming sensation of a storm sent shivers down her spine. The unpleasant reality was that the battle was still very much in its inception. What would she do when he came knocking, seeking to disrupt the life she was painstakingly piecing together? Would she be prepared to meet him with the defiance she had practiced in her mind? The anticipation of those moments gripped her, echoing a future where her independence was not yet firm. With her eyes directed toward tomorrow, a chilling thought roamed through her mind: could she really confront a man who had once crumbled her belief in herself? Decision time loomed, and confidence and trepidation battled for dominance in her heart. The hour of reckoning approached. How would she emerge when faced with her past? Would she stand tall, or would old wounds resurface, undermining the strength she had fought to master? Maria awoke with a determined clarity that eluded her the previous day. The sunlight pouring through her window felt warmer, almost invigorating. Defiance flickered within her heart as she immersed herself in her plans for the day, ready to confront whatever might come. An overwhelming desire to transform her business pushed her into action. She grabbed a notebook, its pages torn and scribbled upon, and began mapping out a list of potential clients to contact. One by one, she envisioned her past projects, the clients who had become friends, and how a mere phone call could rekindle those connections. Each name brought with it memories of laughter, gratitude, and renewed faith in her capabilities. But today, the emotional weight of those memories shifted. The desire to cultivate new growth overshadowed the fear of rejection. With her notebook as a guide, she meticulously prepared for her calls. It wasn't just about presenting her services, it was about sharing her journey, her struggles, her evolution, and the fire driving her to rebuild. That authenticity, she realized, could be her most powerful tool. By mid-morning, she was dialing the first number. As the phone rang, her heart raced. Would they remember her? Would they be willing to give her a second chance? The voice on the other end greeted her warmly, a reminder of the trust she had built before. With each conversation, Maria grew in confidence. "I am not just selling a service, I am offering a partnership," she articulated. She shared her vision, drawing her listeners into her renewed purpose. Responses ranged from keen interest to surprised enthusiasm, each encouraging note fueling a sense of self. It wasn't merely business, it was personal growth manifested in every exchange. Emboldened, she decided to host an open house, extending invitations to her previous clients and potential partners alike. She wanted them to see, firsthand, the new direction of her services. It wouldn't just be an event, it would symbolize her resurgence. But deeper than that, it marked her willingness to take risks, to step into a room where she expected to be validated. Amidst a flurry of excitement, the shadow of doubt occasionally flickered back into her consciousness. She slipped into a moment of reflection, recalling her ex-husband's patronizing tone. "You're only as good as your last clean floor." The thought made her pause. But, in the world of business, narratives could be rewritten, and hers was no longer dictated by his voice. As the days passed, the open house transformed into a reality. Hurdles appeared, gathering materials, preparing the space, and establishing a presentation. She felt overwhelmed, yet her previous fears began to morph into motivational adrenaline. Each completed task fostered empowerment, reinforcing her belief that she was not alone in this venture. On the night before the event, she scanned her office and marveled at her progress. Moments of isolation and fear melted away. She had built something that could stand on its own. A deep satisfaction settled within her. This was not about defiance against her past, it was about embracing her future. Yet an ominous feeling crept back as she recalled how unpredictable her ex could be. The potential for conflict could arise, and her preparations felt incomplete without a plan to confront him if necessary. What if he showed up at the open house? Would she possess the strength to stand her ground, to maintain the boundary she had worked so hard to establish? As she lay in bed, exhaustion mingling with anticipation, a new thought emerged. Perhaps she was merely facing her ex, she was confronting every part of herself that had been shackled by fear. Could she turn confrontation into empowerment? Sinking deeper into the pillows, she questioned whether she would be brave enough to defy not only her ex but her own insecurities. The impending event loomed large in her mind, as did the specter of her past. Tomorrow would hold moments of triumph or test the foundations of her growth. How would she confront the ghosts of her past while ensuring her future remained secure? Opening her eyes to the ceiling, she felt a sense of rising tension. She was ready, but what would tomorrow reveal? The day of the open house arrived, bright and bustling, full of promise yet tinged with an undercurrent of anxiety. Maria's small office had transformed into a vibrant showcase of her ambition, a testament to her evolution. As she adjusted the final decorative touches, arranging freshly cleaned carpets and displaying personalized business cards, pride surged through her. Today was her declaration of independence and strength. Surrounded by images from her past, a collage of memories represented by client interactions and cherished projects, Maria took a moment to reflect. How far she had come. From dusty mop handles to this dynamic space filled with possibility, a transformation was palpable. The woman looking back at her in the mirror wore a glow of confidence she had previously buried under layers of doubt. Yet, shadows loomed nearby, the faint echoes of her ex-husband's dismissive words played back in her mind. Would he dare to show up today? The thought haunted her, alongside the realization that her journey was just beginning. As guests began pouring in, her heart raced with excitement and trepidation. Familiar faces greeted her with warmth, reconnecting her to a world where she had once felt embedded and valued. She quickly shifted her focus, engaging with her visitors, each conversation giving her a surge of energy. "Maria, I love the direction you've taken," one client exclaimed. "It's inspiring to see you back and thriving." The genuine support reaffirmed her purpose, fueling her resolve to forge ahead despite any latent fears. Just as she began to feel the momentum carry her, Maria caught sight of a figure stepping hesitantly through the doorway, the unmistakable silhouette of her ex-husband. Every ounce of courage she had mustered wavered momentarily, her heart pounding as adrenaline surged. But she couldn't let his arrival derail her. Instead, she took a deep breath, aligning her newfound strength with the purpose of the day. Ignoring the panic rising within her, Maria approached him, professionalism overriding panic. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice steady yet subtle. "I came to see what all the fuss was about," he responded with an infuriating nonchalance, the same smirk attempting to return. "You think this little party will change anything? You still know nothing about running a business." "Oh, I might surprise you," Maria retorted, holding his gaze. It was the first time her response felt equally weighted, not laced with fear but grounded in her truth. "I'm here to showcase my vision. Your approval means less than it used to." As she walked away to engage her guests once more, she felt the warmth of empowerment radiating within her. For years, she had navigated life with his voice dictating her worth, but today marked an inflection point. Her gathering embodied her journey, and it was thriving despite the specter of her past. Conversations flowed, laughter echoed, and each interaction solidified her resolve. Derek arrived shortly after, stepping into the welcoming space with ease, his presence smooth and confident. He scanned the room, seeking her out with an approving smile. "Looks amazing," he said, offering a genuine compliment. Maria felt the strength of partnership ignite between them at that moment. Everything she had expressed in their meeting weeks ago was right before her, collaboration uplifted rather than undermined. "Thank you," she replied, her heart racing not just towards him, but for all that had come together at this juncture. With each shared smile and connected dialogue, new foundations were sprouting. As the event wound down, Maria began to receive palpable interest, old and new clients asking about, even booking future services on the spot. It was exhilarating, each interaction reaffirming her dedication while validating her hard work. But the sharp reminder of her ex loomed close, lingering as a reminder of how far she had journeyed. Near the end of the day, just as the cleanup was to begin, he approached her once more, his tone darkening. "You really think this is sustainable? You're taking on more than you can handle. You'll regret this." At that moment, Maria felt the tension between fear and empowerment tip again. "I am capable of whatever I choose to pursue," she said firmly, making eye contact that conveyed her resolve. "More than that, this is not just my business, it's my life. And it's mine to shape." The finality of her words hung in the air. She felt lighter, clearer, despite the familiar contours of their tumultuous history. With that declaration, pieces of her past fell away, shedding the weighty chains he had invariably wrapped around her. Maria felt a serene power unfolding from within as she waved goodbye to her ex-husband. She was no longer just a character in his script, she was the author of her own story. As guests began to mingle out, Maria exchanged numbers, contacts, and laughter. What had begun as a fear-driven journey towards independence had blossomed into something remarkable, a realization of her own enterprise and capabilities. With newfound contact information in hand, calls ready to chart her path forward, a profound wave of satisfaction enveloped her. This was not merely an opening for business, it was a stepping stone towards a future where she chose her identity on her terms. The recognition and connections formed around her only solidified her sense of belonging. Her heart swelled with pride. Her children would now look upon a mother who conquered her fears, stood up for herself, and built a life rooted in intention and courage. As Maria shut the lights off in her office that night, a flush of gratitude mixed with anticipation filled her chest. She had not only faced her past but had woven a future defined by her dreams. She was no longer weighed down by her former life, she had rewritten her narrative, standing tall in her achievements with unwavering confidence. This was the starting line to a life she would shape, and she was ready. Each moment ahead beckoned with promise, as she held firm in her capabilities, eager to embrace the road waiting ahead. Now, as you have witnessed this powerful journey of personal transformation, we invite you to take a moment for yourself. Don't miss out on the next inspiring stories that await. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support matters. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share.